It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin the Friday show. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning. Another very, very busy day out there. A lot of whether it's on social media or whether it's on from the media itself. A lot of thought-provoking comments.
Yeah.
We're getting what we normally get in a situation like this, where it's who's to blame for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right. We know that the shooter is to blame for it.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about, you and I talk about hateful rhetoric. We talk about the hate speech that exists out there. But when I look at it, and you can find people on both sides. You can sit there and if you say, well, I can find people on both sides that use over-the-top rhetoric. But when you look at it, and this is where you have to get into the minutia of it, when you look at the left and the rhetoric coming from the left, the things that they use, for example, if you look at how they went after Bush, how they went after Trump, how they've gone after, McCain, everyone was Hitler.
Yeah.
And it's not based on anything. The one thing that comes out of the left, and I don't believe that every Democratic voter is part of the far left, but they enable the insane rhetoric.
Yeah.
When you call somebody a Nazi, and you and I said this a long time ago, when you call somebody a Nazi over and over and over and over again, you're communicating the message that they're willing to kill millions of people. They're willing just to execute in a genocide millions of people. It gets back to what you and I have talked about. It gets to, is your opinion based on the truth, or is your opinion based on a delusion? When we talk about the Wall Street Journal, with the story and others out there that on the rifle and ammo, anti-fascist.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-fascist is fascist. This is the insanity of it all.
Yeah.
When you say anti-fascist, that means fascist. That's the type of vocabulary we deal with today. And the radical transgender movement also phrases, words, whatever. We don't know precisely what it is here at this particular time. Charlie Kirk didn't hate anybody.
No.
Charlie Kirk did not set any type of public policy at all.
Nope.
He was somebody that went out there and said, hey, all the issues today, let's go to the college campuses and let's debate it. We've seen over the last 24 hours, or a little bit over 24 hours, all the hate. And we talk about the hate, and we talk about the number of people on the left that are willing to publicly say he deserved to die. And that's wrong to begin with. But when you look at what their justification is, it's not true. That's the thing. It's not true. You're making outrageous and insane statements, or excuse me, you're making untrue statements and then using genocidal accusations to justify the murder of someone, and the genocidal, whatever, genocidal, murderous, transphobic, all those things that they're throwing out at a Charlie Kirk were not true. To me, that is the one thing. That's what really separates the far left and the media enabling the far left and sometimes agreeing with the far left, that they're over-the-top rhetoric. For example, when we say, because you could look at this and go, well, that's a horrible thing to say. When we have said in the past, somebody might say, well, that was over-the-top rhetoric. When we said Biden didn't care about people dying from COVID.
We have evidence of that.
And guys, that's a horrible thing to say. Well, no. When his administration did everything they could to close the northern border and just let people come over the southern border without them being tested, that's our evidence.
Yeah, there were specific rules about crossing the northern border based on COVID. The southern border,
right.
We don't care.
Right. That's based on things that actually happened. Now, we didn't call him a Nazi for that.
No.
We simply said the whole thing about caring. When we have said over the last couple of weeks, when it comes to crime in the inner city, Democrats don't care whether people die. You look at that and you say the Democrats that run those cities. I don't mean all Democrats, but the Democrats that run those cities, our accusation is based on the fact that there is a solution to these problems which has been tried and tested. It's obvious what the solution is, and they won't do it.
Well, now if you have the left in those cities over the years saying the right cares nothing about the plight of individuals who are victims in high crime areas in inner cities, Donald Trump steps up and wants to do something about it, and he's a fascist.
Right. Now, these things are controversial things to argue, but they're based on things that are self-evident. When we say a man cannot be a woman, the radical transgender movement and the radical left believes that we've seen it. We've seen it over the last 24 hours. That justifies your murder. And so what we're dealing with is just not outrageous opinions, but we're dealing with a segment of our society on the left that believes things that are absolutely delusional. They're not true. And if you don't go along with it, you deserve to die. When you look at the Brian Thompson, the CEO of the healthcare CEO, well, since they didn't cover everything, since we generically hate all health insurance companies because they don't cover things outside of the contract that you signed with them, that they deserve death. We didn't come up with that. We simply look at that and say, well, that's insane. Well, you guys saying that's insane, well, that could help drive violence. No, it's insane in a modern Western society to believe that murder is justified because you didn't get what you want, even though it's outside the contract that you have agreed to.
And in the wake of Brian Thompson's murder, when a lawmaker, AOC, says you have to understand that when people get their claims denied, they see that as an act of violence. That right. was excusing the murder of Brian Thompson. Full stop. You can't make an argument against that.
Yeah. And so those are some of the, as we said, insane ideas. When you belong to a political party that agrees 99% on the federal level that a man can be a woman And the woman at that point must agree that a man can be a woman and a woman should compete against a man in sports. And when they attempt to fight back, you threaten to destroy their careers, and there is no outrage from your political party at all to say, this is nuts. That's a completely bizarre opinion. And the threatening of these people, we've seen it with Raleigh Gaines, the threatening of violence of these people is completely and totally unacceptable. And you can look at that and you can say, judging by what we know is what is self-evident and what is common in our Western society, that opinion is nuts.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's dangerous. And that's not over-the-top rhetoric.
No.
Over-the-top rhetoric is when you live in a world that is not real, is not based on reality, is based on a delusion. And if people don't agree with you, violence is justifiable.
Yeah.
And that really isn't talked about enough. Well, both sides need to go. Well, wait a minute. Let's break it down. Let's get to the minutia. What are the arguments that you're making? And that's the one thing that I got out of yesterday, that nobody is really breaking it down to the minutia. Let's talk about. I understand that over-the-top rhetoric comes from both sides, both sides. And the whole thing of, and a lot of it, we're here to save democracy. 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 A lot of that's a load of crap.
Yeah.
But that's why we go point by point by point by point. And we get into sometimes, maybe it does get tedious, but that's why we get into the minutia of so many topics out there, because you have to. Because we live in a world that's, shooting happened. Okay, both sides are at fault and both sides need to temper down a little bit. No. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Let's actually investigate and see what the debates are coming from both sides.
Well, and the group that's supposed to be reporting the facts, and of course we know that the majority of them are not reporters, they're not journalists, they're activists, like ABC News yesterday, that posted that President Trump basically didn't have any comments following the murders of the lawmakers, the Democrat lawmakers in Minnesota, or one was a Democrat lawmaker in Minnesota, and that's not true. He actually made a statement. Such horrific violence will not be tolerated in the United States of America. God bless the great people of Minnesota, a truly great place. And J.D. Vance called Governor Tim Walz in the wake of that murder. This is part of why the liberal activist media is failing. But don't make any mistakes here. Doesn't mean they're done. Because you're not going to all of a sudden populate newsrooms, whatever newsrooms are still populated, with critical thinkers. You have a handful right now, and they're the ones actually doing the real work, starting with Barry Weiss, who we've been talking a lot about lately. I think John Solomon is in that group. Sarah A. Carter, Kimberly Strassel. So many people that do, and sometimes we don't agree with their take on something, but I don't see something, and there are times when people like we do trust, like Brett Baer, can get things wrong, and we say, look, if you're wrong, it's not going to be good for you. And he had a report back in 2016 that sources say there could be an impending arrest or warrants or whatever they were going to do, indictment of Hillary based on her email thing. And we came in that night and said, this is hours after he had said that on his show, and said, man, if you're wrong, if you get burned by your sources, and he got burned by his sources. Do I believe he's wholly dishonest? No.
But he got burned.
I believe that someone or a group or an organization is being wholly dishonest when I see a pattern of behavior. when they don't correct that behavior. Getting it wrong is one thing. Repeatedly lying on something that is easily provable or disproved is part of the problem here, because there are people that are reading it going, well, it must be true because it's ABC News.
Yeah.
Trust us. Not the case. This is not a situation of, and yeah, there are things where you can, and I'm with you. Yesterday seemed the whole both sides thing.
And you need to break it down. You need to say, okay, it's not just both sides. You need to break it down. What's causing it? What is, as we saw yesterday when you went to, whether it was TikTok or some X accounts, or what's the other one, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
These people saying, I'm glad that Charlie Kirk, what the hell did he do? As Scott Jennings says, what's his sin?
Right. Because once you start that in motion, there are people, I am convinced there are people in that group, that say, that have never watched any measurable time of Charlie Kirk.
Did I say Cook again?
I don't know, but I think people will forgive you. Sure. Charlie Kirk, they have not watched any measurable time. I am convinced of this. They have only heard what others told them about Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
We have said this before on other issues. What is it you actually know to be the truth? Talk to Michael Rappaport. He'll tell you how to find the truth.
Well, you can use it right there. Trump's a racist because of Charlottesville.
Exactly.
And it was a complete lie. There are still Democrats that believe Trump is a racist, and I know he'll always be a racist because of what he did in Charlottesville.
Right.
That's a lie. He never did that.
Right.
So their opinion is based on a lie.
Yes.
Charlie Kirk knew that, by the way. That's why he was going to college campuses, because he said, they don't know. Like, he goes, they're not socialists. You break down what socialism is to them, they're like, well, I don't want that.
Right.
But it sounds good. It's
right.
Well, I'm going to provide everything for you. Well, it sounds good. I want that. Yeah, but what's the down part of it? Here's the down part. Here's what's happening. We don't want that. And young people, again, are more reactive.
Mm-hmm. But you build fear over and over and over again.
866-90 Red Eye.
Hey there, this is Hope Zavara with Mother Trucker Yoga, and here's your health tip of the day. Healthy driver, healthy diesel, powered by Howes. Lower back pain is one of the most common complaints amongst truck drivers, with over 50% experiencing it regularly. Let's fix that. Sit up tall in your seat, inhale and arc your lower back away from the seat, like there's a pin behind you you're trying to avoid. Now exhale, round your back, and tuck your tailbone under, just like the shape of the letter C. Repeat that movement 5, 10, even 15 times until your lower back and hips start to loosen up and feel ready for the road. There you go. Small, simple changes can lead to big results so that you, my friend, can feel good again. Visit mothertruckeryoga.com and howesproducts.com for more tips and support.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We're Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Interesting. When you look at some of the response yesterday to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the number of NFL players that knew who he was.
Yeah,
he had a huge impact. I think a lot of people underestimated his impact with younger people.
Yep.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. That's right. All right, so I do want to play this. This is Ben Shapiro talking about, and by the way, the whole thing, you saw that the left had come out and said, well, see, the insane left. See, it's working because now Ben Shapiro's not going to go out and do speeches. And it was the Reagan Center that just canceled it. And he goes, no, and this is where he says, no, I'm going out. It's just, the Reagan Center canceled it in honor of Charlie Kirk. They weren't going to do it at that particular point, but they jumped on it like this shows that there's going to be a victory. There's not going to be a victory out of this.
No.
Conservatives aren't afraid to talk.
Right.
Conservatives aren't afraid of you. In fact, this is going to do the opposite.
Right. I think the only change, I think it was somebody at National Review that wrote, and we'll see if this happens. But I believe the only change would be outdoor rallies and events, political events may be a thing of the past. Because if you can't control the security, then you can't have them, with few exceptions. That would be the case. The question will be, all right, where do they go from here? And also, I think, if you look at the Kennedy Center thing and a number of things, it was in honor of Charlie Kirk, but I also think there has to be consideration.
You mean the Reagan?
The Reagan Center, I'm sorry. And the whole thing, Kennedy Center is the different issue. Yeah. Or should we call it the Trump Center? But it's just to drive the left crazy. But when you look at those scenarios that every, I think, venue has right now, the question every venue has right now is, all right, what do we have in place? We all know when we go to, a sports game, when you go to indoor arenas and there's policies there, is that across the board? And I think there's probably a review going on. But there should never be any hesitation to issue your opinion. By the way, for anybody of any opinion. And for, it's the whole thing yesterday was driving me crazy. With the both sides, and both sides. Can we move on and talk like adults and get down to the minutia as you did in that first segment? It's important to do that. It's important to look at actual events and things that were said at certain times and promoted at certain times, and actions and behavior. All of that must be, in fact, analyzed all the way down to the bone if we're going to get to the truth. The truth is the only thing that matters here. Charlie Kirk knew that. And, of course, he also knew that the forces would be working against him. Those who were saying he's spewing hate speech weren't talking to anybody who went to one of his events.
They couldn't define the hate speech.
They couldn't define that.
Right.
That's an important place to start. They couldn't define that. But beyond that, they weren't reaching out to people who had already been there to an event with Charlie, because those people know the truth. Who were they trying to reach? They were trying to reach, it's just like the D.C. crime thing. The liberals were up in arms, but people inside D.C. were going, you know what? We need we need something. We need some help here. Even Mayor Bowser was talking about the progress made there. And I made the point then that those who are screaming about this and complaining and railing against this, and the same goes with the assassination, or basically the person who was in the mission statement of Charlie Kirk, those who are saying hate speech, or trying to convince people that have never been to an event and likely have never spent any quality time investigating what Charlie was actually about and what was actually going on and his demeanor at these events and what he actually believed. And it gets back to Scott Jennings. Where's the crime?
His philosophy of debate.
Right.
His philosophy of how to treat people.
Because the truth kills the left.
Right. And the philosophy is, for Charlie Kirk and many other conservatives. I mean, that's why we have said we never met him. But we felt a camaraderie because we believe in debating the same way, getting to the points, not over the top rhetoric based on delusions, not just everybody sucks, on the other who disagrees with me. But the fact is, look, here's why I disagree with you, but I still love you. Yeah. And my job, look, it's a way that, and I don't know whether he was ever in the Boy Scouts, and I'm going back to the old Boy Scouts. I don't know if it applies to the new Boy Scouts or not.
Yeah, what do they call them now? Scouts.
And I'm an Eagle Scout, and you were taught, my parents, scouting. Your job is to serve. Your job is to serve other people. That's your job. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you're not passionate about what you believe, but you don't hate.
Right.
And you can't hate when your philosophy is to serve other people.
Right.
You and I have always said that we actually got people that were debating us on it. You can believe however you want. We always believe that we have an obligation and responsibility to give back.
Yes. I believe that firmly.
I didn't make it alone.
Right.
We believe in redemption.
Yep.
We believe that people have the not all, but a lot of people have the ability to take horrible things in their life and with a little boost can make it.
Making a mistake or doing something wrong, because I think there is a distinction to be made there between those two, is one thing. It's whether or not you have the heart to correct it and make it right.
And also when, for example, and we did this at the end of the show yesterday, because I was watching TMZ, how some, wasn't all, but some on the right immediately went after TMZ. Mm-hmm. Well, they were laughing. I watched it. I was watching it live. Right. I had a couple of monitors on. That was one of the monitors at TMZ. Mm-hmm. I saw it happen. Mm-hmm. They, Harvey wasn't happy with it at all. They weren't happy about it. And what happened, in case people don't know, they were actually going through two different stories. I suspect, because I had seen online that, and I forgot who was the first to put it out there. I know one of them was Mediate, I saw, but I forgot who else. I don't know. You said it was John Solomon that was first. I don't.
What?
On the Charlie Kirk was dead when he was.
That's what I saw first.
I saw it. I just can't. It was reliable. I just can't remember where it was.
Yeah, it was just the news and John Solomon, and I did not repost it because I was waiting for other sources.
Well, I didn't repost it either.
Yeah,
because I didn't know.
Right.
So I think from what I could get, because they're on their phones, and if you've ever seen TMZ when there's breaking news, they're on the phone. They're on the phone calling people, and you're just watching it. And then somebody will come out. Here's what's going on right now. We're working on a story here, or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like if you want. I will say this, that's transparency in a newsroom.
Yeah.
Because at times I'm like, guys, let's have it more polished. But I understand what they're doing. They're offering something completely different. And look, the majority of the time I don't watch TMZ, but when it comes to things like celebrity deaths or breaking news, I think they've got their place.
I think Harvey has a pretty good Rolodex. What that means is a lot of connections that are solid, sources that are solid over the years where he has been right more times than he's been he's been wrong.
And so they're in a big studio. There's desks and everything. It's more like an office than a studio.
Yeah.
Huge office, whatever. And so they were working, and I'm looking. I said, they're working on, they've seen the same thing. I go, don't go with it yet. We got that. No, don't go with that yet. Don't go with that yet. Don't go with that yet. And I think they saw on social media that it was being reported that Charlie Kirk was dead, but they didn't want to go with it yet. And they go, no, we can't go with that until we absolutely know on that. Right. And then he said that one of the people said to Harvey, well, whatever. He came over looking at that, and he goes, oh, okay. He goes, all right, we've got video of the suspect. This may be video of the suspect or somebody on the roof. At that point, I've said, okay, they've moved on to that. And then you heard laughter or cheering, not laughter, cheering in the background, but it wasn't in the immediate area. It looked like you had probably an area of this huge office of, I don't know, it looked like it could be 200 feet by 200 by 200. It's a huge room that they were in, and it was any of the cheering was way off camera, and you could tell it wasn't up front. The microphones were just picking it up. And right after that, they go, okay, we've got it. All right, it's just being reported. Whatever source they used, that Charlie Kirk is dead. People assume the laughter was because Charlie Kirk was dead. And as they immediately explained, no, they were following an L.A. An L.A. search. A car chase at the moment, and they were getting blasted. And I said yesterday, look, not that I spend any time really at all except for major breaking news going to their streaming service to see what they have. But to be fair, that's not what happened. They weren't going after. They were not laughing. And you could tell he wasn't happy that had happened because this response started coming in. Why are you guys cheering? He goes, "What do you?" No. We weren't cheering because what was that? It was like that was some car chase going on. He goes, "Look, don't go there. There's nobody here laughing." And you could tell the seriousness that every single person in that room had. And so I believe him.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to not believe them.
There was no reason to believe that it didn't happen. And so we wanted to correct that. I don't want to be involved in over-the-top rhetoric of stuff you're not sure of.
Well, and again, it's because I saw the post by everybody. I'm like, what the hell, TMZ? But I wasn't watching that and didn't really, because there were so many other developments. Everybody, including me, was focused on where's the shooter? Where's the shooter? Where's the shooter? And everything was moving so quickly, but I saw that in numerous posts. By the way, John Solomon, or Just the News, was the first news organization that I saw with that announcement. There were a couple of individuals who posted it with no links.
Yes,
Charlie Kirk had done. Yeah, when the president posted it on Truth Social, and then Rapid Response 47 on X posted that Truth Social post, that's what I reposted because that's what I trusted. It was being widely reported. And you and I don't need to be first. I don't want to be part of spreading information that is incorrect, especially in a critical moment, highly emotional moment like that. I think it's imperative to wait until we know what the truth is.
Now, I will say this. It wasn't any Republican politician or any major Republican person. It was just people on social media that were screaming. And I didn't even know who the people were, but I'd seen that come up.
Screaming about TMZ, you mean?
Screaming about TMZ.
Yeah, there were a couple of prominent people on X were, reposting someone else's comments.
Right.
And then they were mimicking those, and I was just kind of saying to myself, man, what's going on at TMZ? But then, of course, we found out later that wasn't true.
Yeah.
So.
And like I said, I saw it live, and I didn't sense anything like that. 866-90-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We probably would not have seen this or heard this 5 years ago. Put me up here, the volume, if you would, please.
Yeah.
Give me some volume. Here we go. Okay.
The National Football League asks that you please join us in a moment of silent reflection following the murder of Charlie Kirk. The NFL condemns all violence in our communities. It will take all of us to stop hate. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow, the NFL.
Then I'm okay with I'm okay because, as we know, that was focused strictly on the right.
Yeah. Right.
5 years ago.
Right. Yep.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, we want to give our want to give our best and our condolences to everybody over at Salem Broadcasting.
Yeah. We have some colleagues over there.
Yeah.
In fact, our producer, Ron, also works over there at Salem.
Yeah.
And
great friends with
Mark Davis.
Yeah. Mike Gallagher. Great friends for a long time. Great.
Legends. These are legends in the talk business. And
right.
It is.
Charlie Kirk was doing, I think he was doing nationally noon to 2 p.m. And that's the other reason he is known so much for his, for what he has done at colleges.
Yeah.
But recently, in the last, I don't know, couple of years.
It was a few years ago.
Yeah, he became a conservative radio talk show host.
Yeah.
And so it's something that, I think about this. The last type of thing like this, of an assassination of a radio talk show host, probably was Alan Berg back in Denver, back in 1984, who was killed by the Order, which was a white supremacist group, because he was vocal about them. He was assassinated in his driveway.
Yeah,
and so it's that they talk about the influencers and other people, and they're going to continue the fight. Nothing's going to stop conservative talk radio and conservative podcasting.
No,
nothing's going to stop it.
Nothing will.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing will stop the promotion of
threat,
ideas, the promotion of the truth. Nothing can stop that. It's in the wake of Charlie's assassination. I believe there's going to be even greater growth in that regard. And I think that both with his organization, which I know will carry on, but also beyond that organization, because the ideas, and I know that Charlie believed this, the turning point, of course, was the organization, but the mission statement is a mission statement that's shared by many of us. Whether you're in the media, whether you're just a person on social media, or even if you don't have a social media account, if you're talking about the ideas, if you're having these debates, even with friends. Molly Hemingway posted a few hours ago. She posted that X and Twitter, going back to Twitter, has really been her professional account where she's been, she talks the ideas and everything else. And on all the other social media, she's just had this policy of just quietly sitting by and, letting her liberal friends just, do whatever and everything else. But, of course, yesterday she said she was, and this is the idea she conveyed, I'm paraphrasing, she had to, respond to some of them. And she said you should try it, encouraging other people to do it. You and I are diehard radio guys. I love what I do. I love the radio. I love the fact that we can talk. We get listeners. And over the years, by the way, we've had a couple of young people call us and write us and say, I've been listening for a couple of years. You changed my mind about something, or I learned something. And that's the most satisfying part of what we do. But the exchange of ideas, the back and forth over the years that's part of it. The left doesn't want to have that, and you and I don't get a chance to do that hardly ever anymore, based on the fact that we have to come in and wade through mountains of untruth, of BS, in order to bring the truth and break down, analyze, and tear apart what the other side is claiming. And we do that, we believe, in a thoughtful way. But if you look at Charlie's mission statement, I think, that's it. And I know that his extended family, his professional family over there at Salem, knew that. But he, as we mentioned yesterday, he was just one of those guys that if you paid attention to what he was doing, you were attracted to it. He drew you to it. He drew you in because, he had that joy. He had that enthusiasm. He had that bright light about him. And I know it is a terrific loss that they are feeling. So our condolences, our love, our prayers are with his extended family, and his many followers, and, of course, Erica and his children. We don't have, when I first got into talk radio, which was '89, I remember by the early 90s, there used to be a talk radio group that had conventions and everything else. And there was a great camaraderie between, with everybody, whether you were conservative or liberal, whatever you were at that. It was still, because it was new. Yeah. It was relatively new business. There was a camaraderie that we're all involved in this. That's been lost, especially now. There aren't really a lot. There were actually a lot more liberal talk show hosts back then. Right. Liberal talk radio is almost non-existent. So maybe that's also one of the reasons is you really don't have them anymore. But there may be some radio talk show hosts that there's jealousy or envy. You and I don't participate in that. And any of the people that we know that even work at different companies, everybody's competing against one another, but we all know what we do. And we all know as conservative talk show hosts, we recognize the responsibility, the responsibility that we have and the obligation that we have to the audience. Charlie Kirk was part of that. He did more than just talk radio, but he was part of this family. Yesterday, if you heard the show, and thank you for so many of the comments that we have gotten. In fact, some radio people and somebody who we used to work with just said, "Wow, guys, it was," and it's like, thanks, but I was, we took it personally. Yeah, it's not like, even though we never met Charlie Kirk, he's part of the conservative talk radio family. We took what happened personally, and we always will, and it's not going to stop. Nothing's going to stop conservative talk radio and podcasting. It's not going to stop. No. It's still growing. It's going to grow more, and nothing's going to stop it. No one. No threats, nothing. Look, we live in the United States of America. There are people, there are so many. You go through the ages of the number of servicemen and women who have sacrificed their lives to sit there and say that any of us in conservative talk radio are going to kowtow to any threats from anybody out there. You're full of crap. That's never happening, ever. No. No, it's not.
And I don't want to sound, braggadocious or anything like that. That's just the reality.
Well, because when you do this, you have to know that's part of it. And I think it goes hand in hand. You either have it in you to carry on with the conversation, the fight, as it's called, or if you don't, and some people, decide that they get out of it, and that's, if that's what they decide for themselves, that's one thing. But the group as a whole will remain. In fact, I would say that I think with the help of Charlie Kirk and others in the digital world, the spoken word opinion on the right has only grown and become more prominent, which is why the left fears it. It's why the left can't have a discussion. They don't want a discussion. They don't like the mission statement of Turning Point and what Charlie Kirk not only put into motion, but was so persistent with it over the years, and it was growing stronger and clearly making a difference. And that's what they don't like. They need to tell lies about it, that it's hate-filled speech. They need to tell lies about him. And that is something that is a clear red flag for the side that feels like they're losing with a significant portion of people. There are two sides. I said this after October 7th. There are radicals, there's everybody else. That applies here because you either are willfully ignorant, because I'm about done giving any excuses to someone for not knowing the facts, with the exception of very young people. For anybody who's an adult, you either don't want to know the truth, you choose to ignore it, or you are part of the lie that carries on.
Yeah, you're comfortable. You set inside your mind, this is the way I wish things are. Somebody in a sentence says, that's what it is. It affirms what you want to believe, but none of it is based on the truth.
Right.
There's no excuse to live that kind of life anymore.
There is.
We talk about Michael Rappaport, but he's probably
a great example.
He's one of the greatest. He's one of the greatest examples. He was buying into the lies,
and I mean, because he was angry left.
Yeah, he was. Yes,
when he ranted back in the day as someone on the left, he would just stay out of the way, going, oh, "Okay, there goes Rappaport again." But when he again, there is a learning process for people. Indoctrination is a real thing, but I think we're running out of time for that excuse. We asked the question because he said it was March of 2024 when he learned that the Charlottesville thing was a lie, and then after that did research and other things were a lie and everything else, and he learned the truth, and that's fine.
When was Charlottesville? 2017?
2017, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think about, was it August 2017?
So you're talking about 7 years?
Exactly.
It took him 7 years.
That's the frustration. Come on.
Maybe that's why part of the anger came in, that he never did his own homework.
Right.
And the anger at himself.
And we also talked about Bill Maher yesterday. We played some Bill Maher, in fact, talking to Charlie Kirk. I mentioned that I'm more willing to listen to Bill Maher. But the one burning question that I have for him is, why did you say it years ago when you said, hey, we called the other guys Hitler, Romney and Bush? I don't know if he mentioned McCain in there, but basically we called previous guys that were running for or became president or whatever Hitler. But this guy, meaning Donald Trump, really is Hitler.
Yeah.
I have never seen him reverse that, apologize for that. And I've got a big problem with that because we mentioned in the first hour. When we went through yesterday, it's funny, you and I were sharing the same frustrations. We didn't even communicate with each other, but the whole both sides. Now let's take a look at it. Honestly,
I'm glad you did because we never talked about it in our pre-show meeting or anything.
It drove me crazy. And if we're going to do this, then okay, as you did very well in the first segment, and since then, breaking down the truth behind it. There are things that you could say, both sides do this, both sides do that. Oh, that's a given. But let's talk about this particular type of concern in building out that threat. When you say this guy really is Hitler, and you've got any amount of influence, and I don't watch Bill Maher on a weekly basis. You and I play some audio cuts every once in a while. I don't have HBO. I don't watch his podcast. But he does have an audience. He has some influence. And when you're saying that, you're telling people that Donald Trump is capable. In fact, his plan is ethnic cleansing. Mm-hmm. That crosses a line and becomes dangerous because you keep repeating, and you're not the only one doing that by any stretch. They're hearing that over and over and over and over again. The thought, the effort behind that, whether everybody believes it or not, or a number of people believe it or not, is one thing. But when you're making the effort to do that, your goal is to drive the greatest fear into someone's heart based on a lie. Based on a lie.
Yeah. And that's the difference. And if somebody on the right does that, we'll call them out.
Yep.
And a lot of conservative people will also call them out and say, don't do that.
Don't
do what they do. We've constantly said, don't do what they do.
Right.
Charlie Kirk became popular and brought in probably millions of young people to consider being a conservative because that's what he did.
Yep.
I'm not going to play this game,
No.
I'm not home. I may disagree with your politics and in the radical transgender movement. It's not true, and you may not like what I have to say, but I love you.
Yep.
And I'll do anything to help you.
Well, this is what the Jussie Smolletts of the world don't realize. If I was in an alley in Chicago, and regardless of who wanted to attack him because he's gay or black or otherwise, or just there, I would have done my best to defend him. And he made up this entire bogus story and said it was a couple of Trump supporters. That, too, that kind of behavior is dangerous.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Just because idling is common doesn't make it smart. Idling a diesel uses about a gallon of fuel per hour, which can cost you about $180 per week at $4.50 per gallon if your truck idles 8 hours a day. Idling easily can cost you a few thousand more in fuel alone per year, not including the added engine maintenance expense that results from excessive idling, harder on your truck's engine than highway driving. In addition to operating costs, many governments impose no idling laws and regulations with fines as high as $25,000. Instead, there are many alternatives: an extra blanket for cold temperatures, window screens for when the weather is warm, bunk heaters, and various auxiliary power unit options abound in this day and age too, many powered just by batteries. Otherwise, diesel and gas gensets burn far less fuel than your truck's engine. Research options to find your fit. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, more of the commentary yesterday from the Charlie Kirk assassination. Plus, inflation numbers out yesterday. We'll get to that and more coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. I want to play this audio cut, Eric. We want to play this audio cut, not me. I'm pushing the button, so I say I as if you have nothing to do with it, but it's simply.
Well, what if I don't want to? Okay,
I have been given the responsibility. It's not like a management kind of thing, but for some reason I have to push the dang button.
I'm the gatekeeper. Are you the key master?
Exactly, but this is Ben Shapiro yesterday, and a lot of people know that Ben was doing this. You know, he did it for, he said, over 10 years.
Yeah.
Went to the college campuses.
Yeah.
Here's what he had to say yesterday.
On a sort of personal level, aside from knowing Charlie and believing that Charlie was a wonderful human being, is the fact that for 10 years, more than that, I went to college campuses, did the same thing that Charlie did. And I always said to my wife and to people around me, they would say, well, is it safe? And I'd say, of course it's safe. This is America. And sure, security would tell you to put on a bulletproof vest, but do you need a bulletproof vest to speak freely in America? Do you need hundreds of... I always thought it was overkill. I do not think it's overkill anymore. I think that we've entered into a new world, a world where huge percentages of the American public, by the polling, are okay with violence against one another based on speech, where excuses are made, permission structures are created for murder because you disagree with the political position of another human being. I'm not sure how we get back, except by appeal to the exact values that Charlie stood for. Open debate, normal discussion. The thing about all the videos of Charlie, he's unfailingly polite in these videos to people. When he is having these discussions, he is polite. He was having polite, normal conversations with people who disagreed on these college campuses. And for that, he was murdered.
A couple of things there. We were talking about sending our condolences, our love, our prayers to Charlie's wife, children, and extended family over there at Salem. But also, I would include people who knew Charlie in the industry, like Ben Shapiro, like Glenn Beck. Yesterday, you came across on social media that message that a 17-year-old Charlie Kirk sent to Glenn Beck, which was just so incredible to see.
Did you see the video of Megyn Kelly and
and
Glenn Beck when they both found out? They both know him well, and that was heartbreaking to watch.
So I want to extend those condolences, the love, the prayers to those individuals who lost someone special. Ben uses, it's so interesting because I had not heard that yet. And Ben used the words, and I was going to earlier, permission structure. When we were talking about how these things are built out, what becomes dangerous in terms of rhetoric, and also where time and time again, organizations like the media, they're activists, not journalists for the most part, support those lies by repeating those lies over and over again. ABC just yesterday on something that's easily disproved. And also, Charlottesville, the Russian hoax. That is part of that building that permission structure in the minds of someone who is potentially violent. And if you haven't, and I believe they do, I think true journalists have an obligation to put the truth out and to not lie. I'm not saying you can't get it wrong, but when you do, you go out of your way. You double down on the correction. It's not on the back page, it's on the front page. And you show everyone, this was our mistake, we're going to own it. And here's the actual truth. But that's not what's going on today. What you have is, again, and I'm glad Ben used it because I was thinking of it myself. It really has become this permission structure. And so now you see that with people on, and their reaction on TikTok and everything else, this grotesque celebration of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And they feel like this is the thing to do. It is, they've been given permission to do this. They feel like it's the right thing to do. You can actually see the smiles on their face. It is grotesque. But part of building all of that out is years and years and years and years of lies.
One day, a poll taken after Charlie Kirk was killed by YouGov, 11% said violence can sometimes be justified to achieve political goals. 72% said violence is never justified. Another 5% said they would prefer not to say whether they think violence is sometimes justifiable to achieve political goals. I'll say that those 5% believe it is. Okay, they just don't want to say it. Saying that violence can be justified was more prominent among Democrats and independents and Republicans, with 14% of Democrats and 13% of independents and only 6% of Republicans holding that opinion, according to the September 10th poll. On the other hand, on the other end of the scale, 81% of Republicans said violence is never justified, compared to 72% of Democrats and 65% of independents. But you go back to, let me just see where it is here. Here it is. In April, because you and I talked about this one. In April, the Network Contagion Research Institute, along with Rutgers University, found 55% of self-identified left-of-center respondents said it was at least somewhat justified to murder President Trump. 48% said of self-identified left-of-center respondents, 48% said the same of Elon Musk.
Wow.
And 40% of respondents, including 59.6% of left-of-center respondents, said it was at least somewhat acceptable to destroy a Tesla dealership in protest. Wow. The question was asked on a scale of 1 to 7 as to just how justified these different acts were, with 1 being not justified at all and 7 being completely justified. Nearly 15% of left-of-center respondents said the murder of Trump was completely justifiable, and 11% said the same of Musk. You're talking tens of, if those percentages across the board, tens of millions of left-of-center Americans believe it's justifiable to murder Trump, and back in April, the same of Elon Musk. This is what you get when you're being told that silence is violence, and asking questions is violence. What you are doing, you're taking speech, and you're graduating speech to actually an act of physical violence that you believe is justifiable by killing that person.
It's, again, goes back to the very basics for me. When you don't value life.
It's a great point.
When you don't value life from the very beginning and everywhere in between, because it's not just valuing the life at its earliest stages, which is, of course, the critical point. But it's every step of the way, which means valuing that person's experience, their work, and respecting them as a human being. And when you don't do that, then you get to a point where murder is an answer in your mind, even if you're not carrying out that murder yourself. In your mind, it's justified. You're part of that permission structure.
So when you look at it, you look at Trump and you're like, so you think that murder, why? I'd like to delve deeper. Why does Elon Musk deserve to be murdered? Why does President Trump deserve to be murdered? What in your mind justifies it? And what we hear is silence is violence and hate speech is violence. Now, hate speech can be whatever you wish it to be.
Anybody on the right talking.
Right. Hate. Well, remember, Josh Hawley, when he was asking that Berkeley professor questions about, please explain to me the whole transgender movement. This is transphobic. This is violent speech. What do you mean it's violent speech? What the hell are you talking about? I'm asking you to justify your position. Why is it violence? And she said it's violence because they have a much greater, and this is what we've talked about the last couple of days, which Charlie Kirk had talked about, which was in the radical transgender movement, they are admitting that there's the Democrats are admitting, the left is admitting, the so-called biggest supporters of the radical transgender movement are saying we need to protect them because they are much more likely than the average person to commit suicide based on things you may say to them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then if they'll commit suicide, will they commit murder? You can't go to that point. No. You can't. Why can't I say that? If you're willing to kill yourself, why, and we know the incidents now of transgender criminals who have committed murder, transgender murderers out there. It becomes a legitimate question. But the mental health question was initiated by the left.
Yep.
They created it. That's the whole bizarre thing. If this ends up, as the Wall Street Journal said, being about the radical transgender movement because of what was written on the rifle and the ammunition, it then brings up that question. But if you think about it, it would then complete that circle of, all right, so you Democrats say you can't even ask about transgender. You can't even ask about, wait a minute, we need to investigate. Why is this going on here? You can't do that because they're much more likely to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And then then there's a mental health problem. That's violence. You need to be murdered for doing that.
Right. That's how you get there.
This is where you look and you say this. This is why I said this whole thing, this stupid thing yesterday. Oh, it's both sides. It's both sides. It's both sides. It's both sides. Not enabling like this. Not the acceptance that of the left. There is nobody, I don't know, anybody on the right that says silence is violence or speech is violence.
No.
I don't know anybody.
No, that comes exclusively from the left.
That's exclusively on the left.
And when you're building that up to that extent, someone who is inclined to carry out the act, to murder, is then feels empowered there's no doubt in their mind they feel like a hero because they know this is what people want. This is what people feel. People believe, a number of people believe it's justified. Luigi Mangione was a hero with a number of people.
Yeah. It's justified because this guy's a healthcare CEO.
It's grotesque.
Yeah. If you can justify it for a healthcare CEO, where else can't you justify it?
Anybody you don't like, right?
Yeah. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, latest on inflation. Did you see what auto parts went up? 5% in 1 month.
In 1 month, with extrapolated that out in a 12-month period,
60%.
60% rate.
Yep.
Yeah.
For automobile parts.
Yeah.
Wow. Or, excuse me, automobile repair, which, again, is because of the parts. They said airlines. I won't put airlines in the same thing. We don't normally judge by 1 month, but the 50% tariffs are in effect for automobile parts.
Right.
Airline flights went up 5.9% in 1 month, but those fluctuate all the time. That's almost like gasoline and
it's seasonal, it's demand, and energy based sometimes. Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Wow. Just saw this on social media.
Yeah.
Author Stephen King yesterday.
Oh, my gosh.
He advocated stoning gays to death. Just saying.
Speaking of, he was referring to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Who responded? Richard Grinnell.
Yeah.
You line POS. You say this because someone said it to you, not because you know that. You do society a huge disservice when you're so naive and simple. People like you who regurgitate other people's points are sheep. You are a sheep. I knew Charlie well, and I'm gay. He was always cheering for me and always finding ways to help me succeed. You have no idea what you are saying. Confident and stupid is a sad combination. Whoa.
Yeah, that one got a ton of response from people.
But that's what we've been talking about.
It's that mentality.
When I heard yesterday, both sides need to keep their... Let's talk about what the rhetoric is. There's nothing if anybody who is on the right or is perceived on the right says something that's untrue, you will have a pushback from a significant portion of people in the media, including us here at Red Eye.
Yeah.
We don't defend lies. We never do. That never happened, what Stephen King said. Never happened.
Nope.
He never advocated that at all. But they have to lie, and that's the difference right now. You're not going to get it from mainstream media because they can't defend what happened, and so they say both sides need to temper it down.
Yeah. Yesterday was Both Sides Thursday.
Yeah. I like that. Both Sides Thursday.
By the left. And the reason is because they know this does not look good for their side. But quite frankly, the both sides thing is getting old. I'll say this. There's one side. You know, they say there's two sides to every story. Actually, there's not. There's one side, the truth.
Yeah.
The truth. And the one thing that Charlie advocated for strongly was the truth. Went into the lion's den, made that his mission statement at the age of 18, knowing that mostly he would be countered by opposition. And carried it on for a long, long time, and it started making a difference. And the nature of Charlie Kirk, also, I would add, is something that the left didn't, because, you know, we hear these words, firebrand. I didn't get that from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk had joy in his heart. Charlie Kirk was very passionate in his convictions. What he did was look to open the debate that the left has wanted to close, and it has been trying to close for years. In fact, he's one of the very few in that generation, very few of his generation, to do that openly and fight for that open debate every day of his life from the point that he started. Turning point. This is what the left hates. Number one, the truth defeats their agenda. And it defeats it in a big way. Look at all that crumbles. Imagine. I'm just going to have a wishful moment. I'm going to have a unicorn moment of my own. Imagine that everyone on the left could have the Michael Rappaport experience. That their eyes are opened, that they learn something and they learn the truth. Imagine that were to happen. Imagine everything that crumbles for the left. How much power goes away? How much power and control goes away? Now, that's not going to happen. That is indeed a unicorn. But Charlie Kirk made a difference. As you mentioned earlier, millions of people became more willing to listen. That's a true influencer. When you're actually changing hearts and minds to improve the lives of other individuals.
Look, I think the reaction came from the left, as you've seen it yesterday, because Charlie Kirk was so effective. And he was effective. What made him effective, even in the minds of the far left, was the fact that he would have civil debates with people from the far left.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would have civil debates with people from the far left, and they can't have that.
They can't have a debate. Number one, they can't have a civil debate.
You cannot. They don't want the discussion. You've heard it. Mm-hmm. Silence is violence.
Yep.
And don't give any of these people the time of day. They're that radical. Don't even debate them. They're trying to make the case that the right and the things that Charlie Kirk believed weren't radical at all.
Right.
They weren't radical. And I've seen a lot of, have you seen that? Saw that start appearing about 12 hours ago. Stop calling normal the far right.
Yeah.
But I talked about it the other day when I said, look, remember, Bernard Goldberg, when he wrote the book Bias, he was a lifelong Democrat. He wrote the book Bias, I think it was in 2001, early 2001, basically said, I work for Dan Rather. CBS doesn't practice journalism. And he gave the examples, and he wrote a couple of books on the precise examples of where the mainstream media doesn't show journalism. I'll never forget that USA Today article, front page, right-wing authors succeeding, and he was part of it.
Yep.
So Bernard Goldberg, who is not even close to being whatever the definition of right-wing is today. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know what the definition of right-wing is.
I don't know what that is, yeah. We were wondering if they would throw that label at Mayor Bowser, who was talking about the actual progress that Trump administration was making against crime in D.C. We thought, well, pretty soon they're going to label her far right. Yeah,
there is nothing, because this is all about debate and free speech. This whole thing here.
Yep.
And it's not about where he stood on the issues. Even
no.
I mean, that may have been the reason that the murderer did what the murderer did. But the fact is, he wasn't. You and I've said it many times before, because we've been called every name in the book, and it's just like, tell me one idea where I'm a radical.
Right.
And we've said it to both of us. Tell us one idea where we're radical in any way, where we're outside the mainstream. And you and I, in analyzing Donald Trump, what he actually believes. Remember, he hasn't changed anything.
No.
The left loved him. Oprah loved him.
Yep.
Everett Donahue loved him. People going, who are those people? Oh. Did Charlie Kirk like him? Yes, he did.
He did. Yes, he did.
But I mean, you go back, but you go back and they absolutely I never forget Oprah. It was like she would be talking today to George Clooney.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, when are you going to run for president? When are you going to run for president?
Right.
Women loved Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, he had the exact same ideas that he has today.
Right.
I don't know of an idea that he has changed in the last 40 years. Do you?
No.
And everything that he believes, everything, and if you're a conservative and you say, well, I don't agree with him on the whole tariff thing, doesn't matter. Tariffs are in the mainstream of political discourse in this country.
Yes. And have been for a long time.
And by the way, normal assassination attempts don't take place over normally fiscal kind of issues. I haven't seen the debt attempted assassination yet. Doggone it, we got too much debt. That's going to get me riled up. You keep saying,
Yeah, I was just...
Okay,
didn't know where you were going with it. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, if you're saying anything and everything can...
No, where I was going with it is none of those are considered radical ideas.
Right.
But then again...
Okay, I see what you're making.
Right, that's the point I was making. But even what these assassination attempts are about, whatever they are, they're not radical ideas. Saying that a man cannot be a woman because the man says so is not a radical idea.
I would say that in 2025, austerity could technically be classified as a radical idea.
Okay.
Because virtually no one wants it. Our audience notwithstanding.
All right, okay. You got me. You had to work at it, but you got me on that one.
The needle moves, you know?
Oh, that's
Who
why.
was it? Rick Scott when he was running. Remember when Rick Scott was running, and I think it was at the midterm. Was it? When was that? Was it 2022? When I forget when he last ran, and he was talking about cuts, and we were like, dude, nobody's listening. That's probably not a good play. I mean, we know that you're a Republican and you want to be fiscally conservative, but nobody's listening. We were just, and not that we disagreed with him, by the way.
And that's why I say it. If you look over the last century, what are all the ideas that have been put out there that are viewed in the mainstream of American politics? And Donald Trump is absolutely a moderate. Mm-hmm. There's nothing radical about Donald Trump.
Right.
Well, he wants to enforce immigration law. He's Hitler. What? People are disappearing. they're not. Holman got that.
He's against crime. Criminals are people, too. I mean...
Well, but here's the other one, too. He's challenging the authority of Congress. Only Congress has that ability. The courts need to get involved. Which president over the last 100 years hasn't been involved in trying to test where the executive power is?
Right.
Where does he differ from any other president? Where does he differ from Biden, Obama, who all said, I think we can do this, and they did it. And sometimes they won. Sometimes the courts knocked them down. None of it, none of those things are in the form of a rebellion, of an insurrection. None of them are at all.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
because
the thing is that the lies, here's the thing about the truth. The truth doesn't change. The lies constantly have to evolve in order to remain at the top, for people to keep them alive, for people to keep them going. They have to change. It's a well-known tactic in investigation. You investigate, you talk to a person, and then you go back a week later or 2 weeks later and talk to the same person and ask them the same questions and see if the story's changing. And the point is that the lies for the left have become so bizarre and blatant that it's just become the norm. It's just become the tactic. And no one, and they know, especially those in power, know that the truth defeats their agenda. That, no, if everyone says, well, sorry, if that guy wants to live as a girl, he can live as a girl, but he can't play girl sports. And we can't, if they're under 18, allow them to make the decision to do something to radically alter their body for life. That needs to happen only with adults. All of these things, again, then what they do is turn around and say, you're radical for thinking that. Charlie Kirk, hate speech, blah, 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 blah. This has been going on for so long, but their lies and the level of radical behavior and rhetoric has excelled to an all-new level and keeps doing that every single day.
Another example coming up next, 86690 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Another point I wanted to make here, because when you look at Trump, and we've talked about Trump, Trump is not at all a radical.
Right.
You know, things that he believes have been in the mainstream of American politics for 100 years. And he's a moderate in the things that he believes. It's not radical to believe that when crime is high, you try to stop it.
Right.
He's been called a racist over and over again. And this is something that we view as actually a weakness in the Republican Party, because they have not fought it hard enough. Even the administration hasn't fought it hard enough. And that's where, when they're called racist, you need not to be on the defensive anymore. The party that practices identity politics, they self-identify as practicing identity politics.
Yep.
And that's very important to got to make sure you say they self-identify.
Yep.
Remember, Stacey Abrams, identity politics works for us.
Yep.
What's identity politics? Well, the Democrats that have come out and said we have to stop the identity politics, like James Carville, whatever. Well, what is identity politics? What is it? Remember, Republicans are the racist, Trump's the racist.
Right.
Well, we're the party of identity politics, the Democrats. What's identity politics? I guess somebody should ask that question and define it, right?
Yeah.
Because it must be something good if Democrats are for it. Identity politics is judging people by groups and not as individuals. Racism. They blatantly promote it, and then they sit on their high horse and say, you're the racist without any evidence. And when they wish to use evidence, they use the lie of Charlottesville.
Yep.
Yet they are blunt. You could not be more open, the Democratic Party, because identity politics led to what? Critical race theory. Mm-hmm. What's critical race theory? All whites are culturally racist to the point where it might as well be genetic, and so all society must be set up that all whites are racist.
Right.
That's how society needs to function.
Yep.
At this point. They're blatantly racist. They blatantly talk about it. And because the Republicans aren't on the offensive enough, they've gotten away with it for a significant period of time. I don't think the public is buying it as much anymore. I think the public themselves have smartened up.
Yeah,
but the fact is, Republicans should be on the offensive on that all the time.
Well, again, it's something that, Charlie Kirk didn't just say, hey, I'm going to start Turning Point at the age of 18 and go out and hold one rally a year. He didn't go out and just say, I'm just going to get it out there, and say it and then stop. He was discussing and having the same debates, in fact, in multiple locations for years, because that's what it requires. The Republican Party should take that lead and do the same.
On our website, RedEyeRadioShow.com. Show info with stations, podcasts, and more. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, the latest inflation numbers came out. Wholesale inflation came out the day before, and there was a lot of celebration because wholesale inflation had moderated a little bit, but that's because it was out of control last month, if you saw it. Mm-hmm. And wholesale inflation, as we know, leads to, where inflation is going. Right. And so the regular inflation numbers came out yesterday, and consumer prices climbed 0.4% in August and 2.9% over the past year, both the most since January. Price increases last month were broad-based, hitting food consumed at home 0.6%. Whoa. It's like what? It's like 6.5%. Let me hold it. Let me just see what it is for a year here. Okay, on an annual basis, that would be over 7%.
Yeah, 7.2.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is really going to bother a lot of people. Alcohol, 0.6%. Again, that's 7.2% over the period of a year. Children's shoes, 1.5%. That's in 1 month. It's not a year. Clothing, 0.5%. New cars, 0.3%. Used cars, 1%.
Oof.
That's huge. Housing, 0.4%. Hotels, 2.6%.
Wow.
Vehicle repair, in 1 month, up 5%.
Vehicle maintenance has been, I go in for oil changes, and it's like, my gosh, it's so expensive. I remember when you could, it's just so expensive right now. But, again, my truck is paid for better than making a truck payment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vehicle repair, 5%. Airfares, 5.9%. But I don't put airfares in the same category as those other things because airfare, as we know, fluctuates. August is the probably one of the busiest travel months of
It
the year.
is. I do know that that's the case for the highways that would, I guess, apply. I'd have to look this up, but I know that it is one of the busiest, certainly because August is when families are trying to get in their last vacation before back to school. Or it's when, if you have split custody of a child, see this, quite a bit, where that child may be coming home from the other parents after spending the summer or something with the parents. So there's a lot of back and forth in August for sure with the airlines. So that is seasonal. It is also, based on demand, which, of course, seasonal is part of that, and based on current energy prices as well.
Used car prices increasing because people are holding on to their old cars.
Yeah.
They can't afford new ones.
Right.
Auto repair shops getting whacked, as we know. 25% tariff on parts, 50% on steel and aluminum. 5% increase in vehicle repairs last month. As we've said before, if you look at, who was it, Steve Cortez, I forgot the other guy, the other one, both of them, Trump and J.D. Vance advisors. I just can't remember. Is it Steve Miner? I think it was. Both saying, you got to do something. You can't let this continue. You've got to do something.
Right.
Warning lights going off.
Yep.
You can be right on every single, you can be right on all the 80-20 issues. If you don't stop this rate of inflation, Republicans aren't going to win in November of next year.
Right.
That's their warning. It's something that we have said overall. You can look at all the other issues, even crime, where it's like, yeah, but he's winning slam dunk on crime. The vast majority of people, especially in suburbs, do not have the same fear of crime as in the cities.
Yeah, because we talk about where they agree with you, the 80-20, but then we talk about what's affecting people directly.
Right.
And it's quite often a difference.
Right. Most people, even if you live in the city, though, even if the crime is bad, most people don't experience crime every week.
When you look at it, there are a couple of things going on here, and I think there's still a lot of uncertainty. I haven't read in the last 48 hours a ton of analysis. There's some that I've been keeping up with. You actually pointed out that the markets yesterday doing, in fact, the Dow was up 600 yesterday, over 600. And you showed, you were talking about during the break, the headline at CNBC that says, hopes of lower rates overshadow U.S. inflation worries. And
what did you call it?
I said
the drunk. What did you call it?
Well, the market has gotten into day drinking.
Yes,
I've said before that the market is drunk today. Well, the market is often drunk. The point is that the market kind of goes, "Yay today," and then, yeah, but you remember yesterday, I said, "Yay today," and it's kind of that thing. But when you get into it, and I think that's to a large extent because it's so easy to get in and out of investments today. I don't know. I've got 4 apps on my phone where I manage my investments, and that's not all my investments. And I can do, it's you look at it, and I think that's kind of the play right now. But also when you look at it overall, when you step back and look at the markets overall, things aren't horrible. What you have is what it shows me, and somebody could, some analysis could be maybe obtained from others that shows I'm wrong here. But for me, it shows that uncertainty in the market, the question mark in the market. Because I still say that, okay, let's say that wish of half a point from Jerome Powell happens next Wednesday, that half a point drop in interest rates. The market's going to rally that day if that happens. If it's a quarter of a point, it will still, I think, be a good day on the market. But then I ask the question beyond that, because I treat my investments as the 10-year CD. Hey, if I'm making this change in my investments, I'm going to be in it for a long time. This is, because it is a long game.
Same with me.
But you can be in and out of different sectors and stocks very quickly. But if the market sees that half a point drop, the question is, does that truly materialize into long-term investment by companies if they're still greatly concerned about the effect on tariffs long-term? And that's the question. I can't tell you the answer. I'm looking at it, and I believe the market right now still has a bunch of uncertainty. I think without that uncertainty, tariffs or no tariffs, I think without that uncertainty, you would see, I think, a leveling out maybe or greater consistency in the job market. Because, again, and I'm not saying for, a massive amount of jobs created, I'm saying in one way or the other, we would see more consistent behavior by companies. Because if you're laying off thinking, well, these tariffs are going to stick, and we don't know because you've got to make a 5-year plan. You've got to make a 10-year plan in business. That's how it works. And I really believe right now there's a great deal of uncertainty. And I think what the market is looking for is, okay, what's going to happen with tariffs? Whether Trump is going to come to deals with more trade deals with more nations, or whether the courts are going to act, whatever that's going to be, I still think there's a huge question mark, and that's what it feels like in the markets to me. I think that's a big part of it. In fact, with more certainty or more direction in the markets, again, and that direction shows tariffs are here to stay, it could mean even worse things for jobs. But again, I'm talking about consistency. Right. And also we have to go back to methodology in the surveys for those unemployment reports that have been discussed to no end, really, in recent weeks.
Well, when you talk about, and again, we can talk about investments. You and I are older, and we have investments, and a lot of, but most people don't. Mm-hmm. Most people, as we have seen, don't have $1,000 to cover an emergency. Mm-hmm. That's where the inflation numbers matter. And even when the inflation numbers started coming down, we were still looking at and saying, understand that any inflation number that we see, for example, if we see 2.9%, that's 2.9% on top of the prices increases that we've seen since 2021.
Yep.
So all of that.
No, you're right. Beyond the market, this is an effect on everyday people that, as you rightly mentioned, that they're worried. Their market is the grocery store. Right. Their market, the ups and downs and, the skyrocketing is happening on the shelves, and they're trying to buy shoes. They're trying to get their cars repaired. They're trying to, because back to school is brutal. I'll tell you, back to school is brutal. It is something that will hand you a defeat at the midterm and maybe beyond if it's not straightened.
Well, and as we all know, the president said specifically, I believe it was 4 times when he was running for office, prices will come down starting day one. So we knew that wasn't going to happen. We knew that was a promise. It was not going to happen. You weren't going to start bringing prices down day one. Right. The president just doesn't have the ability to do that. Right. But we understood the message. We're not going to be doing what the Biden administration did.
We're going to work to improve the economy.
Right. But there's a significant portion of new-time voters that voted for Trump based on the fact that they believed that inflation can come down. Yeah. If you look at every single poll, there's not one where the president is not way underwater on the economy. He may be doing great on other issues. The economy is the one. Right. That's why now you have even advisors, former advisors to Trump and Vance, too, now coming out and saying, you better do something here. We've stated, and we've got, it's amazing, we got flack and criticism for it when we've simply stated, look, when you raise the cost of doing business, an economy cannot get better.
Right.
It's always going to get worse. Now, what are the variables in making it worse? You see that when, when the wholesale numbers came out 2 days ago. See, all the experts were wrong. All the experts were wrong. Well, not all of the experts were wrong. If you said that inflation's going to be the only thing and that will be out of control or the price increases. Well, that's not all inclusive. As we have stated, when you raise the cost of doing business, tariffs, you may have an ultimate goal that's a justifiable goal on tariffs. It may be totally justifiable. We want to get fair, trading here.
Right.
But you don't market it that tariffs make an economy better and that taxing American companies $300 to $400 billion a year is a great thing. And then when Besson came out last week and was stating the fact that the $300 billion, the government spending that would increase GDP, you might as well have Mendami as the Treasury Secretary.
Yeah.
With that kind of socialist analysis of Keynesian economics.
Right.
And so when you look at it, we'll talk more about it coming up, because even when you talk about when the inflation wasn't as great as it is right now, because it's gone up now, what is it, 6 straight months? 5 straight months? Forgot what it is. The inflation rate, has gone up. Even when it wasn't bad, you looked at what people buy. Roasted coffee, up 22% over the last year. Beef steaks, 17%.
The beef thing is just insane.
Eggs, 11%. So they went down, but they're still up further than where they were from a year ago. Apples, 10%. Candy, 8%. Bacon, 7%. That'll lose you an election right there.
Yeah.
Bacon.
that and coffee?
866-90-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. More on the inflation numbers coming up on the top of the hour. You did ask me yesterday, you said, how is the Babylon Bee going to handle the assassination?
Yeah, because
of Charlie Kirk?
somebody that I follow posted, it must be a difficult day. One of the most difficult jobs, rather, today would be working at the Babylon Bee. And
they did it.
And you,
You're right.
And you brought it to me during the break.
Lead headline, World Deemed Unworthy of Charlie Kirk. And then from heaven, Charlie Kirk, faithful follower and witness of Jesus Christ, has been welcomed home to enter into the joy of his Lord. Heavenly sources confirmed that after 31 years of graciously allowing everyone on earth to benefit from his life, God deemed the world unworthy of Charlie Kirk and brought him into eternal glory where he belonged.
Beautiful. Seth and the staff at Babylon Bee, you nailed it again. Wow.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning and welcome. Just going over the inflation report yesterday, and it was not a good inflation report at all. And we had said even in previous months when it seemed like inflation was moderating a little bit, we still said the problem is, the inflation numbers are based on all products. Well, people don't buy all products. They buy certain ones.
Yeah.
And when you see the things that people buy, people are feeling it. And there's political consequence to this if it isn't straightened out by next November. In fact, way before November, it needs to be straightened out. I'm not the only one saying it. 2 former Trump and J.D. Vance advisors have said the same thing in the last 3 weeks. You have to be. I think there have been many mistakes made by this administration in selling the tariffs. I think they're justifiable in some of the tariffs. I believe that, and I think you agree with me on this, that we believed he went about it wrong. The whole goal should have been to have the world isolate China.
Yep. Come to terms with all
Right.
of our trade partners and then turn to China and say, look, we're going to choke you out, all of us together, if you don't get on top of intellectual property rights and other issues that you could solve with the tariffs against China.
There really hasn't been a full trade deal that has been done. Everything has been a framework.
Yeah.
As we know. And the countries are waiting. They're waiting to see what the Supreme Court does. They're waiting it out. And so when you look at it, we understood completely with China what the goal of tariffs would be. Canada, sorry, never made any sense.
Right.
Never made any sense at all.
Right.
With our biggest trading partner. And I think that if the Conservatives would have won in Canada, you would have had much more of a free trade mentality in Canada, which I think would have been great for both Canada and the United States. One of the reasons the Liberal government is in power is the reaction of Canada to Trump, as we all know. What the president can do on it, I don't know. I don't know what he views. You know, his advisors are saying you need to give a ton of money to the people. They're not, even Cortez and the other advisor, they're not saying you need to drop all the tariffs and rethink this whole thing.
No.
They're saying you need to give checks. You know, you need to give the tariff checks to everybody. But Bessent's out there saying, well, if we lose to the Supreme Court, we got to pay all this money back to the American companies.
Right.
It wasn't smart for the administration to not tell the truth in the beginning and say that it's the foreign governments that pay the tariffs. The American public went along with it. Yep, okay, great.
Right.
They pay for it. This is a free ride. There is no free ride in economics. And that wasn't true. As Bessent now, Trump is still out there saying it at times that, you know, they're paying it and look how great it is we're raising all this revenue. And Bessent had to admit, no, the American companies are paying for it. The Treasury Department under Trump is saying different from what Trump is saying, and except when Trump then occasionally comes out and says, well, no, we have to pay it, but it's not hitting the consumer yet.
Right.
And so they're all over the place in it. So what is the goal? When you do something that affects the economy and you're doing it because you believe that there will be something better down the road, you need to be truthful and explain it to the American public precisely. Because right now, the American public, I don't care what poll you take, conservative or liberal, that's the weak spot right now.
Yeah.
That's the big weak spot.
It is.
Is the economy and inflation.
Yep.
And to pretend that it doesn't exist, I would give you the example of the Biden administration. And so when you look at it, when you see coffee last year, this is August of 24 to 25, 22%. I'm rounding the numbers off. 22%. Beef, 17%. Eggs, 11%. Apples, 10%. Candy, 8%. Bacon, 7%. My God, coffee, bacon, and alcohol? Because alcohol was up what? 7 point. No, I don't know what. I don't know what alcohol is year by year, but they were up.
Okay.
They were up year by year based on the one monthly number, 7%. And you said that during the break. You said, "Oh my
alcohol,
God.
coffee, and bacon.
That'll lose you an election every time."
Yeah.
Bananas, 7%. Frozen fish and seafood, 7%. Oranges, 5%. Canned fruits, 4%. And that's on top of everything that you saw from 2021 to 2024. You've got a huge challenge. Utility gas service, 13.8%. Electricity, 6.2%. Motor vehicle repair in 1 month, 5%, year to year up 15%. College textbooks, 12%. Furniture, 10%. Delivery services, 8%. Sure, Amazon's going to be cutting back on who you can deliver to now, if you have an account.
Yeah,
starting October 1st.
Yeah, the shared accounts. They're going to. It's certain deliveries won't be free. So basically, if you had a family member, hey, order me some soap. It's going to be. It may not be free delivery if you've got an Amazon Prime account yourself.
I think they may limit it to one. Somebody was telling me you can have one family, because at that point that means you can't send gifts from Amazon.
Yeah, that would be the concern. That's the downside, because I do that all the time. So, yeah.
So tools and hardware, supplies, 6%. Used cars, 6%. Women's dresses, 6%. Veterinarian services, 6%. Garbage trash collection, 6.5%. So you look at things that people actually buy, and there's a huge challenge there for this administration and the Republicans. And remember, the border's been solved.
Yeah.
That's a solved question. Crime, that's an 80-20 issue. The Democrats look horrible on it, but the majority of people are not affected by crime every week.
Yeah, right.
This is the one thing, and that's why we had the warning a long time ago. You better be careful. And we've taken a tremendous amount of criticism from our listeners for the stance that we've taken that increasing the cost of doing business doesn't help an economy. And that's very shocking for us, having a conservative audience who understands that the minimum wage affects an economy.
Well, and that's it. It's, one of the things about, we were talking about the market earlier, because, and what investment may look like if the Fed next Wednesday announces they're going to drop interest rates a half a point. The hope would be investment by companies, which means jobs would be on the upswing. Typically, that's what it means. And that's how it affects the people, even if you don't have investments. That's how it affects the everyday person. But even that is going to take time. My concern has been probably all summer long. You need to get whatever it's going to be in place and behind you and settled in before you start the midterm season. And now, we probably won't get a decision from the SCOTUS on tariffs. Well, we know it's going to be the first week of November when they hear it, a decision possibly by the end of the year. So the market is looking at that going, okay, even if Trump announces something could change from the courts. The point being is that kind of uncertainty affects the jobs market. It affects investment. Even with interest rates dropping, then there has to be that effect. There has to be greater certainty. Checks written to people may do you well in the for the GDP in one quarter, maybe a second quarter thrown in, but it's not going to be a great effect.
It's also but it's also inflationary.
And on top of that, people still remember. A lot of people got a lot of money during COVID. And now they're complaining, going, yeah, but now it's like I'm having to give it all back with inflation. There's actually a stand-up comedian who did a whole bit on it. His name is Mo Amer. And he was, he was talking about, you gave us all this money. And, oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. And then now it's like we're paying it all back. And I thought, that's an interesting sentiment encapsulated in how people think every day. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter if I get a check today. I'm going to pay for it tomorrow.
But there's no talk. You had it. The last blip was, about 2-3 weeks ago?
I think it was at least a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
And you heard nothing. And there's nobody in Republicans in Congress talking about rebate checks.
I haven't heard
tariff
that.
Rebate checks
I
at all.
Haven't heard that
nothing
at all.
on it. I mean, it could appear tomorrow, but we haven't heard anything on it as to this point.
It needs to be whatever the solid policy is going to be, without more delays, without more, any more 90-day things here or there. But even then, if you do that again, the courts may come in and change that by the end of the year. So it's all up in the air.
I did read something because, remember, Besson saying we'd have to pay back the tariffs?
Mm-hmm.
I did read something the other day that said not necessarily. There is no way, there is no mechanism to do that. And the Supreme Court isn't going to dictate what you have to pay back to different companies. So they were questioning.
That is a great point.
They were questioning whether Besson was being honest about that or not. Whether
he was just a little bit of fear mongering of, hey, we can't do this because political fear mongering.
We'd have to give all the money back.
Right. Yeah. Because we wondered where he came up with $750 billion to $1 trillion.
I don't know who's right on that. I don't know. I
don't know. I don't know what that would look like. It is a great point because I don't know. The question would be, does SCOTUS, could they? And I don't see them ordering the Treasury to just write checks to those companies. So maybe they don't. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah. Do you reimburse just those companies that sued?
I don't know.
Can they claim damages and then get that from the federal government?
I don't know.
I don't know if they can.
I don't know if they
possible.
Can. Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Getting back to the issue surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk, we had mentioned earlier Stephen King coming out yesterday and saying he advocated, the author Stephen King, he advocated stoning gays to death, just saying. Well, he's been obliterated by everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has hit him big time. This is one of the responses. This is a young gay man who was talking to Charlie Kirk at one of his presentations. Here we go.
I'm a gay conservative, and I just want to ask you, what do you have to say for people like me who kind of feel like, I guess, it's kind of hard for gay conservatives because there's not a lot of us. So, like, what do you have to say to other gay people who need to realize, like, they do have a choice?
Yeah, first of all, welcome to the conservative movement. I don't think you should introduce yourself just based on your sexual attractions.
No, I agree. I like, because
that's not who you are.
I like to be thought of as a person, and
for sure, you are a complete human being, and I'm sure you treat people well, and you're studying something. So I want to get away with this idea that you're gay anything. I just think that we have gone a long way in the negative direction in this country, where we act as if the most important part of your identity is what you do in the bedroom. It doesn't mean that much to me, but if you ask from a perspective as a Christian, I don't agree with that lifestyle, but politics is about addition and multiplication. I imagine you agree with a lot of what we talk about.
Absolutely.
Right? Strong borders, strong country, and for that, we welcome you into the conservative movement.
Well,
yeah, it doesn't sound like hate-filled or condoning throwing stones at gays or any of the lies that were told about Charlie Kirk, does it? The left can't stand the fact.
No. And that was
of his approach and the fact that he was able to have discussions and people were willing to listen. This is not and won't ever be a win for the left. This is a win for Charlie Kirk, his movement, and all of us who want to have these debates.
You know, Scott Jennings needs to ask the people again and over again. Look, I'm not going to stop asking this question until you answer it. What was his sin?
Right.
What did he do wrong? Why do you allow the media, and why are you part of a media that says he was hateful?
Right.
Please explain it. This is something that the Republicans need to do. If we're going to talk, if the accusation is that he was a hate mongerer, they ought to be able to define why.
Right.
And if they can't do it, they ought to be severely criticized for it.
Right.
Oh, and just so the left knows, we'll get into talking about this a little bit too following the bottom of the hour. You see yesterday with the number of people, teachers, some professors, other people getting fired from their jobs. There was the public relations person for the Carolina Panthers that apparently got fired. And the left screaming, what about freedom of speech? Well, don't you believe in freedom of speech? Freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. God, do you know nothing?
Yeah.
Do you know nothing about the Constitution?
Right.
Do you know anything about what you're talking about? And, of course, they were blasted by it. Freedom of speech has nothing to do with your job.
Right.
Concept of freedom of speech has nothing to do with it. As I said yesterday, and I believe that most Republicans and or conservatives would agree with me on it. I don't think anyone is calling for any of these people with these horrible, murderous narratives to be shut down by the government.
No.
I want the freedom of speech exists. I want to know what the worst people think. Part of living in a country with freedom of speech, we now have identified, and when this happens, then the polling comes out as we've seen the polling.
Yeah.
And and then we go back to the polling on Trump, where a majority of people that call themselves liberals believe, okay, yeah, we could justify the murder of Trump, and 48% Elon Musk.
Yeah.
We need to know these things. It's important in a free society to know what these people think.
Exactly.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Crowley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you choose. So there isn't anyone on the right that I've seen saying that anyone needs to. Well, maybe there are. Maybe there might be a few saying they need to block those people that are on social media saying that the murder of Charlie Kirk was justified. I don't want them to do that. They haven't. It's still on there. But I don't want them to do that. The American public needs to know that this is a mindset that exists. They need to know, as we talked about earlier, from the poll from last April, the number of self-identified liberals that thought it would be justified to murder Donald Trump or Elon Musk. How easy. You have tens of millions of people in the United States that will say they might not do it themselves, but they'd be okay if someone else did it. Which, by the way, I don't know what the difference is morally.
Right. Yeah.
I can see justification for killing Elon Musk. What? For what? Or Trump, and we said it back then. And so it's very important to know. Now, when you get to other aspects, I know I saw that the family and others are saying, don't stop reposting the actual murder.
Yeah.
At that particular point. Even though there's a part of me, and this comes from my parents, because I did see the up close video when it first came out.
Yeah,
a lot of people haven't seen the up close video. It's horrible. I saw the video of the Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl when he was beheaded by Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
They basically sawed his head. They sawed his head off, is what they did. I didn't get any joy out of doing it. I'm in the news business, but there's even something deeper than that. I'm not expecting anybody else, to have my point of view on it. But I want to see what evil does. I need to know what evil is capable of. When I was young, my father, my mother, I'm sure, approved of it, but my father put in books on World War II with pictures.
Yeah, we had those.
And the pictures were horrendous. My father wanted me to know what war was about. He also wanted me to know, because there were pictures also of the Holocaust, the bodies laying there. I can't remember how old I was, probably maybe 14, 15, or 16. He didn't make me read them. He wanted me to know that they were there. Mm-hmm. Just like my mother put all the the sex books in there with the diagrams of the human anatomy.
Yeah.
And let them know these are books on reproduction, just so you know how biology works. And my mother said she would see me sneaking down the stairs.
Well, I remember the day my dad came into my room when I was young. He said, I need to have a conversation with you about sex. I said, sure, Dad. What do you want to know?
I remember my dad coming to the bedroom. He says, I want to tell you about women and sex and marriage. And I said, what? He said, well, as your father, Al Bundy, stay away from it all. My father wanted me to know the horror. He wanted me to know. He wanted all his kids to know what evil people do and what happens in war. And when evil people start wars, the suffering that happens. I won't watch those. I watched the Daniel Pearl video once. I just, I watched the close-up of Kirk once. I won't watch it again.
I saw it actually with Charlie Kirk. I saw that quite by accident because everything's on autoplay on X. So when you scroll down, the video is already started.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. Yeah, I saw it too.
And I think that probably is, and I don't speak for the family, but I think that would be a concern by the family, is that
absolutely
it's not only not how they would like people for Charlie to be remembered, but also it is it does have an impact, and it can be a lot to handle. There's in some cases you've got if it's like a major news organization posting something, they won't post the entire thing. Mm-hmm. They'll say, okay, but at the beginning, hey, you should know, caution, this deals with this subject matter. And I think that's probably the position of the family, is that at this point, it doesn't serve anything. I'm with you on when you see these things, when you see the most brutal that humans can be, it gets you to a place of, again, setting the table. I don't need to understand who those individuals are. That will be up to law enforcement and investigators. I seek to know that they exist. And because for me, and I think a lot of people right now, are kind of double checking their surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is the world coming to? It's not just that. It's the train murder in North Carolina of the Ukrainian refugee and these things that have happened. I remember when the assassination attempt on Trump took place. And I mean, it just shocks you into a place that gives you, again, you should have, like your father was teaching you, you should have that full understanding of what happened. Because sometimes words can't describe it. I don't know, for my own sake, how much I guess I need to see, because I think at this age, if I don't have a full understanding of the types of individuals that are out there, then I haven't been paying attention.
Right.
But it is important. It is important, I think, to know the full extent of the evil that exists in our world today,
and the consequences of it. At that moment, I remember, and it would have been, I don't know if it was on 9/11 or the day after, the outrage, and I believe it was a New Jersey paper, if memory serves me right, I may have this wrong, that posted the falling man.
Yeah.
The famous falling man picture. And there was an outrage. You shouldn't show that picture. I remember getting on the air the next day and saying, absolutely they should.
Yeah.
Because so many Americans that day made the decision and said, I am going to choose my time of death, not the terrorist in the act of defiance.
Yeah.
Nothing could make me, and to this day, it takes everything I have to think about what those Americans went through at that point, and that's why I'll never forget. Because I realized what my fellow American citizens had to go through, and nothing brings that home to me than actually seeing that picture.
Yeah.
Seeing what happened on an individual case. To me, that's even worse than the buildings collapsing, because you don't see, or you probably can imagine, but when you get to see the falling man and then you see the other pictures of the people waving and the people, even the photographer that said it was like an act of defiance. That actually came from, I think the photographer took the picture.
Mm-hmm.
These people were deciding, I'm going to die on my terms, not the terrorists.
Right.
To put any American in that position, I will always fight radical Islam. I will never take it lightly, ever, because of that moment. I'm not surprised what happened you hear a lot of people saying we've crossed new territory. I expected something like this would happen someday.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by the brutality or the evilness of people that hate the truth, hate morality, hate freedom, hate a society of individual freedoms. I'm never surprised by it because I know the history of the world. And once you know the history of the world, you know it's always a possibility. And that's a consistent in me day in and day out. It doesn't waver. I don't do probably like so many people that have forgotten about 9/11. I'll never forget that. And I remember the images of Pearl Harbor that, again, my father made sure that I saw. I'll never forget those things. I don't ever want to let them go. I can compartmentalize and go on and have a great life and have a happy life and be a happy person. But I need to know. I do. Maybe others don't. I need to know the horror of the moment so I never, ever forget what the enemy is attempting to do and is consistently and will always be trying to do to kill good people.
Aside from experiencing it firsthand, it's the only way to feel it deeply enough in order for it to be to motivate in the right direction, because with that knowing, with that understanding, again, it sets the table, which for me is what it is. I don't need to understand what's in the mind of a killer or the people responsible for 9/11, Mohammed Atta and the other hijackers. But I do need to be reminded squarely that they exist, and the world needs to be reminded that they do, because it wasn't like just that with 9/11 that some people forgot. It's like far too many went out of their way to hide it, and I don't mean completely cover it up, but just go on like it didn't exist. And the reason I say that is because in the war on terror today, what are we seeing? 24 years later, pro-Hamas.
Yeah, exactly.
Protesters right here in the United States, including in New York City.
Right. I need to see one more point. I need to see and feel as close as I possibly can the horror and terror that evil people put those victims through.
Yes.
And I think that's what my dad made sure with the World War II photos and the Holocaust photos. He wanted me to know the terror and the horror and the pain that the victims felt from evil, because then you will absolutely look at a country like the United States and our Constitution, and you will cherish it every single day. You will never forget.
Right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Because our show ends in an hour. Once our show ends, our show becomes a podcast. Well, the show ends, and then we just record the show, and then it becomes our podcast.
Right.
I don't want to make it seem like we do the 5-hour show, and then we're on for an additional 5 hours. 10 hours is even too much for Eric.
Oh, my gosh.
But if you miss part of the show,
we're going to need more beer.
You can always catch it. Well, what did it go up? What was the inflation rate on beer last month?
It doesn't matter. Right. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
No.
Inflation doesn't affect your consumption of beer?
Nope.
You don't drink it.
Means we won't be buying shoes or getting an oil change, but we're getting beer.
So, download our Red Eye Radio app today.
Yeah, that's the point.
And get a beer.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.